Hello friends and welcome back to my channel. My name is Cheryl and today I'm here when it's really fucking cold outside to bring you my January wrap up. So I read so many books in the month of January. I don't even know how this happened, considering the amount of books I read in the month of January is almost the amount I read last year as a total. So I don't know if this momentum is going to continue. So without further ado, let's just get into these. So the first series of books I'm going to talk about are books, let's see, 2, 3, 4, 5 and a half, so basically a novella, and a point of view collection from a character from scenes in these books, but just from a different character's perspective of the Kate Daniel series. So because I read so many of these books and they are late into the series, obviously I can't really talk about plot-wise. However, I loved all of these books. Most of these I read within a day. They are such quick reads. As you guys know by now, this is quickly becoming one of my favorite series of all time. So basically this follows our main character, Kate Daniels, who's a mercenary in a world in which magic has returned full force. So a long time ago, before technology rose, there was magic. However, with the rise of technology, magic was slowly diminished. And at one point in the future, magic slapped back and has destroyed technology. And now they are in a constant fluctuation with one another. So this follows the trials and tribulations of these characters trying to survive in a world in which magic and technology are incredibly unpredictable. When magic is up, technology doesn't work and vice versa. So this world is unpredictable, to say the least. I can't obviously give you any details about it, but I loved every single one of these books, including the novella, including the point of view collection, which is from our main character's love interest, and it was free actually. The authors decided to grant us with a gift of writing these for free, and it was just absolutely fantastic. Would highly recommend the series if you have not already picked it up. It is just like a paranormal fantasy romance story. It's got everything in it, including the creepiest depiction of vampires ever. So yeah, highly recommend them. This is the reason I've read so many books this month. I would not have read as many books this month as I did if not for this series. So the next book I'm going to talk about is The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck by Mark Manson. I've had this book on my shelf for a while and I finally got around to it, and I have very mixed thoughts about this book. I rated it like a 3.5 star, and it's a very short book, although this fucking book is $25. It's so tiny. It's definitely not worth that. So if you can get this book on sale, would recommend doing it that way. It's not worth full price. Anyway, so this book is just our author's guide to not giving a fuck, to living a less stressful life. So the first part of the book is just his motto of just not trying. Basically, you know, if you don't force yourself and try your hardest to not give a fuck, then you're not going to. By trying to not give a fuck, you give a fuck, is essentially what this whole book is about. However, I found a lot of the advice he gave to be very typical advice that you get pretty much in any self-help book, and came from a very privileged place. But overall, I did enjoy it. It was a very quick read, so if you enjoy these kind of books, I would recommend it. So the next book I'm going to talk about is another non-fiction book, and I've had this one on my shelf for quite a while, so I'm happy I finally got to it. And that is The Real Doctor Will See You Shortly by Matt McCarthy. This is like a memoir biography of the author's first year as a medical student, or rather a resident in a hospital, and I have very mixed opinions about this book as well. When it comes to real life accounts, like the author telling about their life, I have a very hard time criticizing it because these are their actual experiences. However, I felt that this book was written in a way that was over dramatic at times, and it just wasn't quite what I was expecting. I was expecting more of like a humorous account of, you know, the patients he meets, but it was just really all about him and the struggles he particularly went through, which I'm not saying that going into the medical field, and especially your first year as a doctor, is not probably incredibly difficult. Personally, I wouldn't know. I don't have any desire to be a doctor, and I liked experiencing it through this account. However, like I said, it just felt very much woe is me. And like I said, I have a hard time saying that because this is his actual account. But yeah, so I think I gave this one a 3 stars. Yeah, I gave this one 3 stars. It probably honestly could have been like a 2.5, but I was a little generous. So if this sounds interesting, if you like these kind of books, you might enjoy it more than I did. And the next book I'm going to talk about, I'm actually going to breeze through because I've talked about this book many times before, and that is What the Hell Did I Just Read by David Wong. It's almost unfair to put this on this list just because I read like 90% of it in December, but I did finish it in January. So according to Goodreads, I read it in January. Obviously, I love this series. I've talked about it many times before. This is the 3rd book in the trilogy, which I think is being extended, but I don't know if it follows the same characters. This was good. I give it 4.5 stars. I really enjoyed it. If you like books with dark sense of humor and cosmic horrors, I would recommend this series and this author. The next book I'm going to talk about is a beloved favorite here on BookTube, and that is Scythe by Neal Shusterman. This is the first Neal Shusterman book I read, and so I don't have like explicitly negative things to say about this book. I did rate it like a 4 star, so it wasn't bad by any means, but people like are tripping over themselves to praise this book, and I just don't really get it. So basically, this is a world in which humanity has peaked. We have conquered death, we have conquered disease. People can just live forever and actually turn back the clock every once in a while and reset themselves so they can just appear younger again and just basically live through the same life over and over. But to curb population growth, there are scythes who are tasked with killing people. And they are basically able to choose the way they do it and pick people at random. Some of them follow like statistics in that back in the mortal age, statistically this many people would have died riding a train. So then they go to a train and pick someone at random based on those statistics. So by concept, this book was interesting. I think it raised a lot more questions than it answered. For example, why the hell, if you have the option of killing people humanely, do you not do it? Even the humane sides, not the crazy ones, still don't always humanely give a person a pill to like, here, you're gonna go painlessly. They still choose to sometimes just stab them. I don't get that very much, and I found a lot of times this book dragged. It wasn't very action heavy, and you kind of would expect that from a book that's, you know, about people killing people. So I enjoyed it. I don't know if I'm going to continue with the duology. The other one is Thunderhead, I believe. So if you guys have read the second one, is it better than the first one? Is it worse? I don't know. I enjoyed it. I can see why it's popular on BookTube, but it just didn't grip me the way I was hoping. The next one is a reread for me, and actually it's a finish of a reread. I started this book way back in, I think, like August of last year, but it was during my reading slump, so I read about a quarter of it and then put it back down. And that is Illuminae by Amy Kaufman and Jay Kristoff. This book is always a wild ride. It is told as a dossier, meaning it is transcripts of videos, chats, as well as a variety of other things that are telling the account of the survivors of the Illuminae incident. Basically, on this planet that really was an illegal mining operation that shouldn't have existed, this company took the opportunity to blow it up. And the survivors escaped on a ship, and realizing that there were survivors, this company was like, ah shit, we gotta go take them out, and has basically been chasing them through space as these people are trying to reach a hyper waypoint so that they can escape and tell the world what the hell happened, because even though they were a semi-legal or semi-illegal mining operation, it still isn't a reason to just be murdered violently. So this book also includes a crazy AI, because it's sci-fi, of course it's going to include a crazy AI, as well as a disease that turns people into rage-induced zombies essentially. And so it was always a wild ride. Like I said, I enjoyed it, gave it 5 stars. I really want to continue my reread. I'm gonna pick up, what's the next one? Gemina sometime soon, and reread that so I can finish the trilogy with Obsidio, which I've had on my shelf for a long time, actually since the day it came out, and have not read. So by rereading these, I hope to continue and finally finish this trilogy. So this next book is once again a book that is nonfiction, and it was different than I expected. So either I'm just not really reading the synopsis of nonfiction books correctly, or I'm just hyping them up to be something different. But this is Bubs Beauty's like memoir sort of thing. A Beautiful Mind, A Beautiful Life, her guide to being unstoppable. So I was expecting this to be more of a memoir of accounts of her life versus as much self-help as it was. And if you don't know, Bubs is a YouTuber, a very prominent YouTuber who got started in the beauty community but has slowly transitioned pretty much to being an exclusive vlogger as she, you know, details her life, her trials as a mother, her marriage, and she's just a very wholesome person, and I've always enjoyed watching her videos, so I was, you know, really wanted to support her and pick up her book. Like I said, it kind of fell flat. A lot of her self-help sections were incredibly generic, and that's not her fault, but like there wasn't really anything original in her self-help parts. However, especially towards the latter half of the book when she really started putting in her own experiences and the trouble she's had in her own marriage and in her life and parenthood, that part I really appreciated and how she tied that in with the advice. So it wasn't a bad book. I rated it 3 stars. I don't plan on ever rereading it, so I'll probably be unhauling this one soon, but I am happy to support her. And if you like her, I would recommend picking up the book though, because it does really have her voice in it. It's not the best thing written, and she actually says that she knows it's not because she specifically wrote it. She wanted to write it. She didn't want it to be written by a ghostwriter. So it's not like the most eloquently written thing, but that's actually what gives it a bit of charm in my opinion. But yeah, if this is something you're interested in, I would recommend picking it up. So now, those are all the physical books I read and the chunk of ebooks I read. So we're gonna get into ebooks that are not in the Kate Daniel series, and the first one I'm going to talk about is A Kingdom of Exiles by S.B. Nova. This cover is absolutely gorgeous, which is why I picked it up. I got it for like, I think $1.99 on Kindle, and it's a Faye story, which I know you're rolling your eyes, you're saying another Faye story, and I'm saying yep. So I was expecting something original from this story, and the beginning was really good. It takes place in this very bleak and dreary town, as they always start off doing, and our character, whose name I don't even remember, is accused of being a changeling, which is the child of a fae and a human. So her town is incredibly afraid of changelings, so they put her on trial, and the typical punishment for being a changeling is death. However, people who appreciate her actually take it upon themselves to fight on her behalf. So basically she is sentenced to live in a cage in the woods for 3 days. She's given supplies and told after 3 days if she isn't dead or hasn't been reclaimed by the Fae, then she will be assumed innocent but still be probably exiled, which is still better than death. So she, you know, says, okay, there's not really much I can do about this, but so she gets put in the cage, and lo and behold, she is rescued by a Fae and then whisked away as a slave or getting sold into like slavery, I don't know, serfdom. So she is taken to a part of the Fae world in which she will then train to be part of the army, so she's just a regular soldier. Which actually there are a fair amount of humans in this place because they are taken with some frequency from the human world because Fae do not procreate at a rapid enough speed. What bothered me about this book is the fact that our main character is boring as hell and is unremarkable in many ways, considering I don't even remember her name, but yet every male Fae, every single one of them falls over themselves to be with her, either as friendship or romantically. Like everyone is obsessed with her. It's like a Bella Swan situation where she's unremarkable but everyone loves her. And then this book is basically the A Court of Thorns and Roses series. You have a main love interest who is essentially a Tamlin character. All of the other characters represent characters from Sarah J. Maas's series in some way, so it was incredibly unoriginal. And I feared that going into it because I figured it would probably be influenced by some way by that series. However, I didn't expect it to be like as blatant of a ripoff as it was. So I definitely don't plan to continue this series. I gave this like 1.5 star. It had promise in the beginning, and I don't know if just her and Sarah J. Maas like took from the original lore, but it was identical in many ways from the characters, like I said, to the mating bonds and the telepathy and just all sorts of things. So yeah, would not recommend the series, even though the cover is beautiful, and that is the biggest letdown of all. For the next book I read, I was in the mood for a romance, and this is a romance author that everyone recommends, and this book in particular is one that everyone recommends, and that is The Duchess Deal by Tessa Dare. I loved this book. It was so much fun to read. I read it very quickly, I think almost in a day, and I rated it 4 stars. It's nothing mind-blowing, and the book is very aware that it is just a fun romance book, but there's nothing wrong with that. So this follows our main character, who is a dressmaker, and she makes a wedding dress, a very gaudy wedding dress, for the Duke's bride-to-be. However, she backs out of the marriage after the dress is already made. So wearing the dress, the dressmaker then shows up at the Duke's estate and is like, hey, you're gonna fucking pay for this dress. I put in a lot of hours into this. And he's like, no. And she's like, hell yeah, you are. So she's a very strong female character. She doesn't really take shit from anyone, and she's very independent. And the Duke is like, I like your gusto. I also need an heir. So you want to get married? And she's like, I guess. She's like, you know, that would help me in my position in society. And he's like, and you can give me a baby, and then you can live in this like retreat forest estate, and we're never gonna have to see each other. And she's like, this is also an opportunity to help my friend who is pregnant out of wedlock escape and have her baby without society knowing. So she's like, I can use this to my advantage. And he's like, I can use this to my advantage. So it's a marriage of convenience for both parties, unbeknownst to the other party. So it is the classic setup, and obviously they fall in love, and the Duke is horribly disfigured from a war accident, so he doesn't think he's lovable. She ends up loving him, and it's so cute. I love these characters so much. If you don't like romance tropey filled books, I would avoid this one, but I had fun reading it. If you guys have any recommendations for other Tessa Dare books, leave them below. So the last book I'm going to talk about is probably the biggest hyped book on BookTube at the moment, or at least until the sequel came out, and that is The Cruel Prince by Holly Black. I finally picked this one up, and boy oh boy I have thoughts. So this book is another fae book, because that is the new trend, and there's nothing wrong with that. I don't think fae books are inherently a bad thing, but this book, I gave it 3 stars, so I obviously didn't hate it, but I do not understand why everyone loves the love interest Cardan as much as they do. So I expected Cardan and our main character Jude to like get it on by the end of this book, with the way you guys like ship them so hard and are like, oh my god, they're the best couple ever. But they like don't romantically interact but like once in this book, so that was a letdown. Also, he's a bad guy, you guys, and I know you guys like the anti-heroes and oh, he's had a tragic backstory, but like he's still fucking abusive and to her and to everyone around him, so that's still not excusable. But before I get into all of that, the main premise of this story is that it follows Jude and her 2 sisters, her twin who is also human, and then her half-fae sister, as they are whisked away to the Fae lands, because that is always how this goes, and are forced to find their place in society where they are not welcome because they are different. And Jude basically gets tangled up into politics as a spy and has to do her things as a spy, and then gets wrapped up, like I said, with Cardan, who is one of the princes in line for the crown. In this society in particular, it is not based on who is who was the firstborn, but instead the king gets to pick his next heir, so all of his heirs are vying for the throne, and so there's political intrigue, which I did enjoy. But y'all, this book wasn't the best written, and I've always had that problem with Holly Black books, is they're not always the best written. And like I said, I don't really understand why you stan Cardan so hard, considering he's kind of a jackass. And I know you're like, that's his charm. He was abused. That doesn't excuse the shitty things he's done and the fact that he's not really worthy of being a love interest, in my opinion. I'm sure you guys are gonna be like, well, he gets better in the second book. Regardless of that, I'm talking about this book and how like much you guys went crazy over him in this book and him and her together. I just don't see it. So like I said, it wasn't necessarily a bad book, and I probably will read the next one, but I had like incredibly high expectations going into this book, which is also part of my own problem because I have a tendency to fall victim to hype, which a lot of people do, but it's hard not to when you guys say that this book is like God's greatest gift on earth at the moment. So yeah, like I said, gave it 3 stars. This is amount of fingers, that was not right. 3 stars. So we'll see if I pick up the next one and when. So thank you guys so much for watching this incredibly long January wrap-up. Like I said, I have no idea how I managed to read this many books. If I didn't find this new series I love, the Kate Daniel series, probably wouldn't have been this many. But yeah, I succeeded. Don't know if I'll continue this momentum into the rest of the year. Honestly, if I don't, that's okay. I'm about halfway in Shadow and Bone by Leigh Bardugo, which is the first book in the Grisha trilogy. I'm having thoughts about this one too, but you'll have to stay tuned for my February wrap-up to hear those thoughts. So yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and follow me on all of my social medias, which are always linked down below, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye!